Hello, thank you for stopping by my website, and no doubt you're wondering what's going on here. Is that guy going out on an armed robbery or something like that? And no, I'm not. I'm going to do something even more dangerous than that. I'm going to tell you the truth, and hopefully you can hear my voice through this ski mask. My name's Ted Adamson. I'm the author of this book, Up From Down, and I have something to say. Now, you may be wondering, well, why doesn't he take off the ski mask and just say what he has to say and not hide his identity? By the way, if you look at the back, there's my picture on the back of the book, but you only see my back. And that's by design. Because although God is forgiving, no doubt, society is not all that forgiving towards drug addicts and alcoholics. So let me tell you briefly a little bit about my background to hopefully give myself some credibility. I used drugs for 14 years, heavy drugs, from about the age of 14 to the age of 28. And the last few years of my drug use, I was mainly a heroin addict, but I used all kinds of different drugs prior to that. I was addicted to barbiturates, amphetamines, LSD, you name it. A lot of us that grew up in the 60s experienced that. I was an N number with the state of California. For those of you who don't know, N number is where the state of California sends drug addicts. My N number was N371, and I'm not going to tell you the last two digits, but there were two more digits. And so I went through the program that the state of California has for drug addicts. The last time I used drugs was 1976, somewhere just around this time. March, April of 1976, so that's 35 years. So I used drugs for 14 years and I was off drugs for 35 years. And the reason why I wrote this book is because, you know, I'm sick of all the lies that are out there. I'm sick of people not telling the truth. And we really do live in the dark ages of addiction treatment. After I did my time at CRC, which is where the state of California did and still does send heroin addicts, I paroled out April 1st, 1977. And like many people, like many drug addicts, well, not so many at that time, but I got involved with Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. Although back in those years, Narcotics Anonymous was not the big, it was a much smaller program. It hadn't really exploded at that time. So, so I'm very familiar with both those programs. I did all the things that you could do in AA, be an AA secretary, be an AA intergroup rep. In Narcotics Anonymous, I was an H&I chairman for one of the regions. And so you might be asking, why do we need another book? After all, we have this book, Alcoholics Anonymous, 3rd edition. They don't use this anymore, they use the 4th edition. We have this book, Narcotics Anonymous, the basic text, and so why do we need another book? And that's a good question. First of all, some of the things that are taught within Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous just aren't true. It's a big fat lie. Alcoholism is not a disease. It never has been. It never will be a disease. Shooting drugs is not a disease. It's a lie. And somebody needs to say it. And generally speaking, that kind of truth is not welcome either in Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. And well, you might say, well, don't those programs work for people? Well, and I would say, no, not really. What happens to most people is they get addicted to the meetings. They get addicted to AA meetings. They get addicted to NA meetings. And they substitute that for the addiction that they had for alcoholism and drugs. But do they ever really resolve the root problems of why they had drugs in the first place? I can tell you from my first-hand experience, most do not. Most. I won't say all, but most. And then we have other programs. Celebrate Recovery is another one, based on the 12 steps and Christ-centered. Sounds good. They also teach that drinking is a disease. It's not. Drinking is not a disease. It's not an allergy. It's nothing to do with your genes. It's not your brain chemistry. It's none of that stuff. So what we do is we live in the dark ages of addiction treatment. So maybe, I don't know who you are that's watching this. Maybe you're a drug addict yourself, and I don't think I have to go too far to convince you that it's not a disease, because you already know it. It's only when you get involved in these treatment programs and go through their brainwashing process that you end up believing that. But most of the drug addicts I shot drugs with, none of us believed we had a disease, and we didn't. And so maybe you're a drug addict. Maybe you have a family member that has a drug problem. You know, maybe your son or your daughter has a drug problem. And you know what? What did you have to do with it? What did you do to them to cause them to go out and use drugs? I know it's not popular to say that. If you go to Al-Anon meeting, I've only been to one Al-Anon meeting in my life, and I went into the meeting, and one of the first things that they said, well, it's not your fault that your loved one is drinking themselves to death. Well, you know what? If you have a son or a daughter that's on drugs, I'd say, yes, it is your fault. What did you do to them? What did you do to them to cause you to cause them to hate you, that drove them to drugs? You know, we've been fed that lie so long, and I want to throw up. Ever since Art Linkletter's daughter killed himself, and he ran around the country telling people it was not their fault, and it's all baloney. So, we just live in the dark ages of addiction treatment. You know what? I ran into a guy the other day in front of a Walmart. He was a certified drug counselor. That means, you know, he'd gotten off drugs for a while and jumped through all the hoops to get become a certified drug counselor. And he's the kind of person that you send your son or your daughter to a drug treatment center, and there are these certified drug counselors. The junior colleges throughout the country are pumping them out like Ben Bernanke pumps out greenbacks off his printing presses. So you have all these certified drug counselors with little to no understanding of what causes drug addiction or what to do about it. And like I say, I ran into one the other day, certified drug counselor, went back out, started using drugs again. And when I talked to him, he was in a Christian homeless shelter and trying to get his life back together. But that's the point I'm trying to make is that most, not all, but most of the so-called experts on addiction in this country do not know what they are talking about. They do not know what to do about the problem, and it's like a car mechanic. You know what? If the car mechanic doesn't know how to fix the car isn't going to get fixed. So, and that's the state of affairs that we find our in. Now, I either know what I'm talking about or I don't, and I hope. Thank you for watching my video. Here's my book. It's available as an ebook at a very low price. It's available at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, all those online places. You can see it. And what I tried to do in the book is, through an interesting story, to tell the story of my drug addiction and my recovery, and the things that I had to go through and what I had to discover and realize in order to be free of drugs. And I think this book can be helpful to you. I'm going to put some other information up on the website that will also be helpful. So if you're on drugs, get a copy of my book. You could get it as an ebook, very low cost. If you have a loved one, send them a copy of the book. If they're locked up in the jails or the penitentiaries, send them a copy of the book. Books can be sent, at least within the California prison system, if you order a book through Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble and send it directly to the inmate. If it comes from the book publisher, they will allow it to get in. The county jails too, I believe, most of them. Check with your local county jail to determine that. So anyhow, that's all I have to say at this time, and I know what I'm talking about. I lived it, and I'm trying to bring a little insight and understanding to the problem where none exists. Thank you, and God bless.